Have you ever planned on something and did a complete 180 and did the opposite of that? Yeah, everyone does that, including Royal Caribbean. I've got 5 really memorable times when Royal Caribbean decided to completely change direction, up next. Hey everyone, it's Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and earlier this summer, Royal Caribbean announced that Allure of the Seas would not be able to sail from Galveston as planned in 2021, and then offered limited options for guests to rebook their cruise on another sailing. An avalanche of negative feedback to the cruise line resulted in Royal Caribbean changing its policy and adding more options to rebook cruises, and this is a great example of Royal Caribbean shifting its stance on something it had already announced, and it's not unprecedented. In fact, Royal Caribbean is not shy about changing its mind even after announcing a change. Now, to its credit, guest feedback has played a major part in quote-unquote getting it right, and there have been some very public examples of when Royal Caribbean decided to completely change direction based on guest feedback. Now, while this list is not the entire collection of policy shifts by the cruise line, it is a look back at some of the more notable 180s by Royal Caribbean recently. So let's start off with the buffet. Yes. Now, of course, with cruises being shut down, initially there was a lot of questions about what cruising would be like when cruises do eventually restart. And an example is, of course, the fate of the buffet. When Royal Caribbean President and CEO Michael Bailey spoke to travel agents, he alluded to the idea that Royal Caribbean would be getting rid of the beloved Windjammer buffet entirely because of, well, the global pandemic. Now, speaking about that sort of changes guests can expect to see on a cruise ship once sailings resume, Mr. Bailey indicated that the Windjammer buffet concept was all but gone. This is a direct quote from him. "I think in the beginning, there will not be a buffet in the beginning. That's how I see it. It depends again upon the timing. We will utilize the space. We will utilize the Windjammer, but in all probability, it won't be a classical buffet. It will be something more akin to a restaurant," end quote. Fast forward a week later, Royal Caribbean Group Chairman and CEO Richard Fain walked back the notion that there would be no buffet. He said, and I quote, "It doesn't mean that you don't have a buffet. I think it's very likely that you're not going to see that on land or sea," end quote. So while we don't exactly know what the buffet will look like entirely, we do know that it will still be there, and it was an example of course, Royal Caribbean kind of changing its mind a little bit. Next up was when Royal Caribbean announced it was going to get rid of Majesty of the Seas. In 2014, Royal Caribbean announced that Majesty of the Seas would be transferred out of the fleet in 2016, joining her other Sovereign-class sister vessels that had already left the fleet. Her last sailing was scheduled for April 29th, 2016, and then the plan was for her to join Pullmantur Cruises. Now, let's fast forward to July 2015, and then Royal Caribbean suddenly announced that Majesty would remain in the fleet due to, quote, popular demand. So instead of leaving, Majesty would undergo a drydock to receive a number of enhancements, and one of the additions to Majesty that was announced but removed was free and unlimited VOOM internet on board, so that's another little micro example of Royal Caribbean changing its mind. The next example of Royal Caribbean changing its mind was when Royal Caribbean announced it was going to be extending the Oasis-class neighborhood perks. In September 2019, Royal Caribbean announced it would discontinue the extra benefits that it had offered to guests who booked a boardwalk balcony or a Central Park balcony on Oasis-class ships. The change initially meant that anyone who had booked a cruise for January 1, 2020 or after, following the announcement, would not receive the neighborhood perks anymore. Now, many cruisers were upset because they already booked these cabins based, in part at least, on the idea of receiving these extra benefits, and so 3 days later, Royal Caribbean grandfathered in anyone who had a booking made prior to the discontinuation of the neighborhood benefits. Now, a very memorable example of Royal Caribbean doing a complete 180 was last summer when Royal Caribbean announced the $18 drink package error. The saga of the $18 drink package blunder of 2019 is one of the prime examples of a complete flip-flop on a decision. So, if you don't remember this, in July 2019, Royal Caribbean accidentally put its unlimited alcohol package on sale for $18 per day, which is a crazy low amount because usually that deluxe beverage package runs somewhere between like $40 to $52 per person per day when purchased in advance. Now, Royal Caribbean apologized for the error, but it said it would not be honoring the price mistake. Instead, the package price will be canceled and refunds will be issued. A lot of people were not happy with that decision, and they took to social media and phone calls to let Royal Caribbean know that they did not like it. And following a large amount of guest feedback, Royal Caribbean relented a day later and announced that it would indeed honor the price of the drink package error and just own the mistake. And the last and I think most significant policy change in recent memory is the rise and demise of something called dynamic dining. In 2014, Royal Caribbean was looking to shake things up with its complimentary dinner offerings on its Quantum and then later Oasis-class ships by adopting a new approach to dinner in the main dining room called dynamic dining. The core concept of dynamic dining is to remove the main dining room completely and instead offer a number of smaller, complimentary, and extra cost restaurants for guests to choose from. Passengers could book specific times for any of these restaurants in advance prior to the cruise or opt to book reservations on board the ship. The idea was simple: to break away from the traditional dinner constraints that cruising had and had honored from the traditions of early days of cruising, and quite frankly, had led to a lot of people being a little more hesitant to try a cruise because they had this idea that dinner was a stuffy, formulated, must adhere to sort of procedure. Well, off the bat, dynamic dining ran into some problems on Quantum and Anthem of the Seas, and Royal Caribbean attempted to save it by adopting a new rotational dining program that would seek to address some of the primary concerns guests were having with this new concept. But feedback on dynamic dining was so negative that at one point, Royal Caribbean actually gave guests $100 each for the trouble they had endured going to dinner. Despite Royal Caribbean's best efforts, guests just never warmed up to the idea, and in September 2016, Royal Caribbean announced that dynamic dining would be abandoned in favor of a return to, yes, traditional dining. So what do all 5 of these examples have in common? They're all about Royal Caribbean trying to get it right. Listen, no one's perfect. Royal Caribbean is definitely included in that. And while they may make a decision or an announcement that is with the best of intentions or maybe make some good business sense at the time, they do listen to their guests and they want to make sure that at the end of the day, they're offering guests the best possible experience and that they're, of course, making sure that everything they're offering is what guests are looking for in a cruise. So these are some of the examples that really stood out to me. I'd love to hear in the comments below if there's an example of this that you can recall, whether it was maybe just the other day, other month, other year, or maybe it was many years ago. Share with me the times that you've seen Royal Caribbean do a complete 180. Would love to read those as well. And while you're below our video, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on your notifications so that way you know when I have a brand new video to share. And by doing all of that, by the way, you'll have an added bonus, yay, of being able to be notified when I go live on YouTube. Every Monday evening, I am live on YouTube, hanging out with you guys, talking Royal Caribbean. I do a little bit of singing too, not that anybody wants to hear that, but I do it anyway. And we have a good time hanging out together, so I'd love for you to join us for that. Until our next video, I'm Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.